Combine the classic gameplay of Windjammers with the magical lore and setting of fantasy RPGs and you get SpiritSphere DX. This new Nintendo Switch exclusive is Fabraz's first game as a publisher. You may have heard of them as the developer who worked on Slime Sun before. I reviewed that game last year and now they're getting into publishing, starting off with this brand new take on air hockey. When you boil down to it, SpiritSphere DX is basically an air hockey game with some layers added on top of it. You play as a handful of different warrior characters, each with their own unique stats. Lyn, for example, is an all-around good character who shares similar stats across the board. Buster, on the other hand, is a blue fox creature that has lower base stats but also has maxed out speed for quicker movements across the field. The stats consist of power, speed, defense, and control. Each one of these play a factor into how your character feels on the battlefield, or rather the tennis court. Stages are maps or fields that look like they're ripped out of a dungeon in The Legend of Zelda or Final Fantasy. They're then warped to be something that looks more like a tennis court, air hockey field, or a game of pong. Pick your poison. All of these maps are unique from each other and change up the feeling of the base game, with hazards and terrains that have you looking out for them. For example, there's the spring map, a rather simple in design map that doesn't really have any hazards at all. It's just a medium-sized open space that allows the ball to ricochet across the walls. The dungeon map, on the other hand, can have blockades and a skeleton monster that can quickly become a distraction on top of the core gameplay. Jumping into a match, you'll see a rather simple setup. At the center of the court is a ball that you can swing back and forth across the field. These balls have different properties varying on the match and the game mode you're playing in. Once the match begins, it gets right to the core of the air hockey mechanics. Using the character you have selected, you can execute two types of attacks to hit the ball in an attempt to score the point on your opponent's post. You can perform either a regular swing or a charge swing. The graphics really don't do it justice, as despite the visuals, there's a difference in the momentum of the ball when you do hit it. You can even do a little bit of a directional input on the swings to curve the ball before it starts to pick up any speed. Each of the characters also have a dodge roll of sorts, something that can quickly get them across the field for a last minute trick shot against the enemy. There's variations on this move based on the character you're playing as. For example, one character will get a literal dodge roll move while another will get a teleport move that goes further the longer you hold down the button for it. These are the basics for the game, and though they're simple, I think it feeds into the nature of it being a really approachable pick up and play game. There's no going around that under the surface this is still a very basic game. But that also led to a lot of situations where I could ask just about anybody, both one that's experienced and one inexperienced in games, to join me for a quick match. That's how I interpreted this game, something that I could break out and play in a quick burst, but not so much for long periods of time. The mechanics of the matches were fun and simple, though not so deep to be something that captivated me for hours on end. Instead, I'd play this game at a friend's house while we waited for one of our other friends to get ready to go out, or on a commute into the city, things like that. This DX version that's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch features a handful of new game modes not available in the base game that's already out on PC. There's the traditional campaign mode that's just playing through 10 levels across multiple stages against different opponents. The story mode is very little to none, with interactions between characters being a quick blur like something ripped out of a fighting game's traditional story mode. Hand-to-hand mode is really interesting. It reminds me of the 2-player co-op mode in Bomb Monkey for the Nintendo 3DS. Here you play a 2-player match, but rather than splitting the Joy-Cons, you actually grab the Switch vertically with a friend, almost like a conjoined Game Boy. It looks very weird in practice, but oddly enough is really fun and clever. Squash mode converts the tennis game into a game of handball where you now play on the same court, volleying against one wall, trying to get your opponent to miss their shot. Target mode puts obstacles and enemies in the middle of the field while the players try to hit every one of them as targets for points. It's a lot like the versus mode in ARMS, only much less chaotic. Lastly, there's the 3-player boss mode that puts 2 players against 1 for some fun competitive matchups. As you play through each one of these game modes, you'll be rewarded with coins that stack up at the top right of the screen. You can spend these coins over at the Sphere Fountain, where you can spend 100 coins to give you a brand new unlock, an incentive to keep on messing around with the variety of different game modes. Overall, I thought the gameplay was fun and enjoyable. Its simplicity can be a bit of a double-edged sword though, where it's an incredibly approachable game, but also one that, while it did keep me coming back for more matches, they were bite-sized matches and not long periods of time. The real attraction of playing was the hand-to-hand mode and the regular matches modes against friends. Having the items turned on with crazy power-ups and items on, things like bombs and having one player turn into a giant. I wish there was an online mode for it though, as this is very much a multiplayer targeted game that's now restricting its best feature to when you have people around you locally. The single player content and unlock system is good, but certainly not outshining the multiplayer anytime soon. SpiritSphere DX not only shares the DX name with Link's Awakening DX, but the art style is very much the same. The entire game is themed after RPGs and dungeon crawlers of the past like Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy, but Link's Awakening DX is the most apparent. Everything from the way the game looks to the actions of the characters like the sword swings screams nostalgic Game Boy Color era, and it looks great. While normally I'd like to see a bit more variety in the sprites for the crowds or the background of the maps, I think that the simple color swap here for some of the backgrounds is effective for the nostalgic feelings it's trying to mimic. The music and audio design for this game only further sells the nostalgic factor it's aiming for. Chiptunes designed to really captivate the feeling of the stage you're playing on play in the background of each map. While in the spring stage, happy upbeat tunes will play in the background, though that'll quickly change to a more ominous spooky theme song when you're playing in the dungeon stage with skeletons around you. It's perfectly set to fit the setting of the stage, all while staying in character to the nostalgic visual style. That attention to detail continues on with the sound effects of the sword slashes and explosions of the bomb items. It all very much feels like a long-lost Zelda spin-off ping pong game. That's not even mentioning the stellar use of HD rumble with actions. Earlier I mentioned that though it's hard to see, you can feel the difference in momentum with ball swings, and that's really thanks to the HD rumble in this game. With the ever so slight differences in vibration, you can truly feel the swing of the ball and how great the momentum of a swing is. It's so subtle yet so effective at the same time. SpiritSphere DX is a fun and entertaining game to play in bite-sized portions. It reminds me a little bit of Towerfall, a great party game that's just a lot of chaotic fun but simple in its setup. SpiritSphere, though a completely different genre, feels like it's rooted in that same feeling. Its single-player content is good, though really it's all about the multiplayer for this game, and that's partially limited because of the lack of online multiplayer. With that said, when you do have friends to play with, it's a charming, approachable, and an amusing experience wrapped up in a nostalgic themed presentation. It's going to retail for $10 on the eShop, although you can get it for $9 if you pre-order it ahead of its July 2nd release date. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. That does it for my review of SpiritSphere DX on the Nintendo Switch, though you can pick up the original base game on Steam as well. If you enjoyed the video, then please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new around here for more videos just like this, and thank you all very much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.